Hey guys, I'm Josh and I'm here to talk to you about possums, trees and a little bit of conservation, so strap in. Possums have been a pest in New Zealand for as long as I can remember, and that's because they were first introduced in 1837 as a part of the fur trade. This possum is the Australian bushtail possum and is a protected species in Australia, but in New Zealand is one of the most damaging pests for our native plants and animals. Possums are found everywhere in New Zealand and Stewart Island, but were eradicated on all of the major offshore islands since the early 90s. Possum numbers have been really hard to assess, but in the early 2000s, estimates ranged from 50 to 70 million. As well as this, in the early 2000s, I was born, so that's nice. The possum is a fluffy little bastard weighing around 2 and 5 kgs and has a thick coat. Being a nocturnal tree dweller, they are well equipped to getting around and eating all of our native birds, the little mongrels. The effect possums have on native birds is huge. In areas where possums aren't controlled, few kokoko and kiriru can make it to adulthood. However, in 1997, a study was conducted in the Pururua forest. Robins nesting in an area treated with 1080 poison had a 67% success rate compared to the 30% success rate outside of this area. After a year, the numbers had increased by 37%, with 16% outside.
Possums are hard to manage as they occur in such high numbers that their own predators, like feral cats and hawks, do not have much effect in controlling possum population size. In addition to this, leaves are the main part of their diet, but possums are opportunistic omnivores, eating buds, flowers, fruits, and berries, which means they compete with the native birds and reptiles for food sources. The growth and life cycle of a tree or plant is significantly affected when all parts of it are eaten. Possums also have favourites, such as rata or kamahi trees, leading to an even greater impact on the species. Deer and dairy farmers also have the added worry of possum spreading bovine tuberculosis. The value of economic loss in primary production for damage and control of these possums is in the tens of millions. New Zealand has a goal of being pest-free by 2050, so lots of different trapping options are available in the effort to stop possums. The Department of Conservation also does 1080 drops. 1080 is a biodegradable poison to protect native species from introduced pests like possums, rats, and stoats. In addition to this, wasp control using Vespex is a wasp bait that can be purchased from Mercento by approved users, ground control for pests like traps and bait stations, as well as possum fur recovery and bounties, giving more incentive for farmers and hunters to get the possums.
Yep. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about some of the dominant flora and fauna in New Zealand. First up, we have this bastard. It's the supplejack. Supplejack is the most common lowland vine in New Zealand and is found in all lowland forests. Its vines create an impenetrable tangle difficult to get through. Early on, it looks like a small shrub. However, this changes once it reaches the 4th season, where growth happens rapidly, where the vine tip begins spiralling anti-clockwise up anything it can find until it reaches the canopy. Once at this stage, it is able to bear flowers and fruit that the Māori used as an ingredient in remedies for sore throats. In addition to this, you can actually eat the end of a supplejack as it's growing if you can find it. It tastes like an asparagus, but doing this would kill the plant, so there is a risk coming with that.
This tough vine has been used throughout history by both early Māori and Europeans. Early Māori used the tough stem of the supplejack vine to tie thatches to roofs and walls of their homes. These were later used to tie up fencing and platforms as well. Famously used in lots of different bushcraft recipes, the berries are edible once they are ripe and can be eaten raw or cooked. As well as this, the seeds are a good source of fatty acids when eaten, and the sap can be consumed as well. The roots have also been known to be a substitute for sarsaparilla, and they are rich in starch, leading to lots of new recipes.
Up next, we have the whekiponga. Now, whekiponga differ from other tree ferns as they wear a skirt made entirely of dead fronds around the trunk, whereas the forest floor surrounding it is covered by a thick layer of intertwined roots. Māori used the tree as a building resource. The bark was made into walls, while the ferns became a part of the roof.
Whekiponga is relatively widespread, occurring in both North and South Islands. However, it's not as plentiful as its cousin, the wheke, which is just the same tree without the skirt. The two species are easily distinguished because of this. This thick skirt of dead fronds has led some botanists to believe that the skirt helps prevent unwanted hitchhikers like Vine's epiphytes, such as the northern rata, which starts its life as an epiphyte, circling up trees until it can form its own. It takes a long time to grow, taking a really long time to get above 6 meters. It's not as easy to gauge the age of a whekiponga like it is on the nikau palm, but there are still specimens living as long as 100 years in the wild.
Okay, up next we have the weka, found all around Acon. The little bastards have stained my carpet several times. Anyway, now, historically weka have been an important resource for iwi as they're so available and have a dominance in the niche they fill. Being a ground-dwelling scavenger, they're so tenacious that they're a threat to burrowing seabirds and ground-nesting birds that they are regularly voted off pest-free islands even though they're a native bird there themselves. They're all-round little bastards.
Being a short, brown, flightless bird, the weka is often mistaken by tourists for kiwi. Weka might not sound great, but did you know weka have been a contender as our national bird? Weka have been winning the hearts and minds for many years, but Charlie Douglas, a well-known explorer of the West Coast in the late 1800s, was a huge admirer of the weka or Māori hen. He questioned why New Zealand hadn't selected the weka as its national bird. In his field journals, he listed the qualities of a weka: its personal valor, an undying thirst for knowledge, an affection for and brave defender of its young, and its intelligence, beyond instinct, far higher than what he'd seen in a bird before. As well as this, people born on Chatham Island call themselves weka as opposed to kiwi, because weka is such an integral part of the Chatham Island identity.
Now, when we're talking conservation versus recreation, a local effort is the Hokitika Gorge. Now, the Hokitika Gorge is an old gorge physically, but a very new tourism discovery. A popular destination with West Coast tourists, as it's just 30 k's out of Hokitika with its scenic views and blue water.
Yep.
What happened was a few people found it and it blew up on Instagram after they posted it, which led to thousands of visitors each day over the summer months. To accommodate this, the Department of Conservation has improved walking tracks, put in a bigger car park, toilets, and even a cell phone tower courtesy of Vodafone. However, not everyone's on board, as many locals are against the development of this area as it goes off against their off-the-grid lifestyle, seeing tourists as a blight on their environment. The argument here is that too many people coming through ruins the natural environment. But without them people coming through, the West Coast economy would fail, as this brings in so much money to the local shops. Tourism is New Zealand's biggest export right now, and to not go in on it would be stupid. Alright, thanks guys for watching. I hope you learned something, and have a great night.